Here is a line-by-line explanation of the IELTS reading passage, European Transport Systems 1990 to 2010, written in a beginner-friendly way. Section A. 1. It is difficult to conceive of vigorous economic growth without an efficient transport system. Explanation. It's hard to imagine strong economic growth if the transport system is not good. 2. Although modern information technologies can reduce the demand for physical transport by facilitating teleworking and teleservices. Explanation. Even though modern technology helps people work from home and use online services, so they don't need to travel. 3. The requirement for transport continues to increase. Explanation. People still need more transport. 4. There are two key factors behind this trend. Explanation. There are two main reasons why transport needs are growing. 5. For passenger transport, the determining factor is the spectacular growth in car use. Explanation. For people traveling, the main reason is that car use has increased a lot. 6. The number of cars on European Union, EU, roads saw an increase of 3 million cars each year from 1990 to 2010. Explanation. Every year from 1990 to 2010, there were 3 million more cars in the EU. 7. And in the next decade the EU will see a further substantial increase in its fleet. Explanation. And in the next 10 years, the number of cars will increase even more. Section B. 1. As far as goods transport is concerned, growth is due to a large extent to changes in the European economy and its system of production. Explanation. When we look at the transport of goods, not people, the increase is mostly because of changes in how Europe makes and sells products. 2. In the last 20 years, as internal frontiers have been abolished, the EU has moved from a stock economy to a flow economy. Explanation. In the past 20 years, since borders inside the EU were removed, Europe changed from storing goods in large amounts to moving goods more often in small amounts. 3. This phenomenon has been emphasized by the relocation of some industries, particularly those which are labor-intensive, to reduce production costs. Explanation. This change has also happened because some companies moved factories to cheaper places, where labor costs less. 4. Even though the production site is hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away from the final assembly plant or away from users. Explanation. Even if the new factory is far from where the product is put together or used. Section C. 1. The strong economic growth expected in countries which are candidates for entry to the EU will also increase transport flows, in particular road haulage traffic. Explanation. Countries hoping to join the EU are growing fast, which will increase transport, especially trucks on roads. 2. In 1998, some of these countries already exported more than twice their 1990 volumes and imported more than 5 times their 1990 volumes. Explanation. In 1998, some of these countries were sending out, exporting, over 2 times more and bringing in, importing, over 5 times more goods than in 1990. 3. and although many candidate countries inherited a transport system which encourages rail. Explanation. Even though these countries had train systems from the past that were strong. 4. The distribution between modes has tipped sharply in favor of road transport since the 1990s. Explanation. People now use road transport much more than trains since the 1990s. 5. Between 1990 and 1998. Road haulage increased by 19.4%. Explanation. From 1990 to 1998. Goods moved by truck increased by 19.4%. 6. While during the same period rail haulage decreased by 43.5%. Explanation. At the same time, goods moved by train decreased by 43.5%. 7. Although this could benefit the enlarged EU, it is still on average at a much higher level than in existing member states. Explanation. But still, train use in these new countries is higher than in old EU countries. Which could be good for the bigger EU. Section D. 1. However, a new imperative sustainable development offers an opportunity for adapting the EU's common transport policy. Explanation. Now, the idea of sustainable development, protecting the environment for the future, gives a chance to change the EU's transport plans. 2. This objective, agreed by the Gothenburg European Council. Explanation. This goal was agreed upon at the Gothenburg meeting of EU leaders. 3. Has to be achieved by integrating environmental considerations into community policies. Explanation. The goal is to include care for the environment in all EU rules. 4. And shifting the balance between modes of transport lies at the heart of its strategy. Explanation. A big part of this plan is to change how we use different types of transport, like using trains more than trucks. 5. The ambitious objective can only be fully achieved by 2020. Explanation. This big goal can only be completely reached by 2020. 6. But proposed measures are nonetheless a first essential step towards a sustainable transport system which will ideally be in place in 30 years' time. That is by 2040. Explanation. But the first steps are important now to create a good, eco-friendly transport system by 2040. Section E. 1. In 1998, energy consumption in the transport sector was to blame for 28% of emissions of CO2, the leading greenhouse gas. Explanation. In 1998, transport used so much fuel that it caused 28% of carbon dioxide, CO2, a main cause of global warming. 2. According to the latest estimates, if nothing is done to reverse the traffic growth trend. Explanation. If no action is taken to stop traffic from growing. 3. CO2 emissions from transport can be expected to increase by around 50% to 113 billion tons by 2020. Explanation. CO2 from transport might grow by 50% and reach 113 billion tons by 2020. 4. Compared with the 739 billion tons recorded in 1990. Explanation. This is much more than 739 billion tons in 1990. 5. Once again, Road transport is the main culprit since it alone accounts for 84% of the carbon dioxide emissions attributable to transport. Explanation: the main cause is road vehicles, which make 84% of carbon dioxide from transport. 6. Using alternative fuels and improving energy efficiency is thus both an ecological necessity and a technological challenge. Explanation: so, we must use eco-friendly fuel and better technology. This is important for the environment and hard to achieve. Section F. 1. At the same time, greater efforts must be made to achieve a modal shift. Explanation: we must work harder to move from one type of transport, like road, to another, like rail. 2. Such a change cannot be achieved overnight. Explanation: this change won't happen quickly. 3. All the less so after over half a century of constant deterioration in favor of road. Explanation: especially because we've used road transport more and more for 50 years. 4. This has reached such a pitch that today rail freight services are facing marginalization. Explanation: now, goods transported by train are becoming less used and less important. 5. With just 8% of market share. Explanation: they only carry 8% of goods. 6. And with international goods trains struggling along at an average speed of 18 km per hour. Explanation: international goods trains are very slow, only about 18 km per hour. 7. 3 possible options have emerged. Explanation: experts have come up with 3 ideas to solve this. Section G. First approach. 1. The first approach would consist of focusing on road transport solely through pricing. Explanation: the first idea is to control road transport only by increasing the cost, like tolls, fuel taxes, etc. Closing parenthesis. 2. This option would not be accompanied by complementary measures in the other modes of transport. Explanation: this idea does not include help for trains, ships, or other transport types. 3. In the short term, it might curb the growth in road transport through the better loading ratio of goods vehicles and occupancy rates of passenger vehicles expected as a result of the increase in the price of transport. Explanation: in the beginning, higher prices may reduce road traffic a little, because people may use vehicles more efficiently, like carrying more goods per trip or more people per car. 4. However, the lack of measures available to revitalize other modes of transport would make it impossible for more sustainable modes of transport to take up the baton. Explanation: but because other transport types, like rail, are not improved, eco-friendly options won't grow and can't replace road transport. Section H. Second approach. 1. The second approach also concentrates on road transport pricing but is accompanied by measures to increase the efficiency of the other modes, better quality of services, logistics, technology. Explanation: this second idea also increases road prices but also improves trains, ships, etc. by giving better services and technology. 2. However, this approach does not include investment in new infrastructure, nor does it guarantee better regional cohesion. Explanation: but it doesn't include money for building new roads or rail lines. and it doesn't ensure better transport connections between different regions. 3. It could help to achieve greater uncoupling than the first approach. Explanation. It could reduce the connection between economic growth and road traffic better than the first idea. 4. But road transport would keep the lion's share of the market and continue to concentrate on saturated arteries. Explanation. But road transport would still be the most used, especially on already busy roads. 5. Despite being the most polluting of the modes. Explanation. Even though road transport causes the most pollution. 6. It is therefore not enough to guarantee the necessary shift of the balance. Explanation. So this second idea is not enough to make the big change that is needed. Section I. Third approach. 1. The third approach, which is not new, comprises a series of measures ranging from pricing to revitalizing alternative modes of transport and targeting investment in the trans-European network. Explanation. The third idea is not new. It includes many steps: setting prices, improving other transport types, like rail, and investing in a big European transport network. 2. This integrated approach would allow the market shares of the other modes to return to their 1998 levels and thus make a shift of balance. Explanation. This plan would help trains, ships, etc. become more popular again like they were in 1998 and change the balance away from road transport. 3. It is far more ambitious than it looks, bearing in mind the historical imbalance in favor of roads for the last 50 years. Explanation. This plan is very big and bold, especially since road transport has dominated for 50 years. 4. But would achieve a marked break in the link between road transport growth and economic growth. Explanation. But it would finally separate road traffic growth from economic growth so the economy can grow without more road traffic. 5. Without placing restrictions on the mobility of people and goods. Explanation. And it would do this without limiting the movement of people or goods.